Welcome to the next episode of Frankly Fukuyama. I urge you to like the video if you do and subscribe to the channel. So I'm talking to Jerry Kaplan again. We spoke, actually it was probably a couple years ago, it was a while. But Jerry is a computer scientist. He has a PhD in computer science. He's been working on artificial intelligence ever since his graduate school days. He's started several companies as an entrepreneur, and he's written now, how many books on artificial intelligence?
On AI, I've written 3 books.
3 books on AI. And the last one was titled?
Generative Artificial Intelligence, What Everyone Needs to Know.
Okay, good.
From Oxford University Press.
Right.
2024.
Very good. So it's very hard to open any media source these days without reading something about massive investments going into artificial intelligence, gigantic data centers that are sucking up all the water and electricity for large parts of North America and other parts of the world. I think everybody has been excited kind of using generative AI, but some of the claims that are being made are really extraordinary for how our world is going to be different. And I know that you have, you believe part of that story, that it is going to make our world very different, but you also don't believe a lot of the claims being made. So why don't you tell us where you think we are in the development of this technology and how you think it's going to affect us, and, anything else you can say about, where we are in this technological revolution.
Sure. Well, I assume I don't have to define generative artificial intelligence for your audience.
Yeah, we don't.
So I'll skip that. The answer to your question, I think, is yes. This is a tremendously impactful, fundamental technology. It's going to affect a lot of things in a lot of ways. We can get into more detail on that if you like. It's going to change the way we live, change the way we work, even change our conception of our place in the universe to some degree. Now, the common misconception about artificial intelligence, I should say the framing of this, is that we're building these machines and we're making them more and more intelligent, and they're coming up and pretty soon they're going to be equal to humans in intelligence, and as soon as they take a step over that line, they're going to be what's called artificially generally intelligent, and they're somehow going to take over and explode, take over the world and represent a threat to humanity and all this. Mm-hmm. I'm here to tell you this is complete nonsense. It doesn't match what's happening with the technology at all. The right way to think about it is what we've invented is a very valuable new technology that's really an advance in automation. And if you want to understand the effects it's going to have, you need to understand the basic effects that automation has in the past, because that's what's going to repeat itself in the future. And automation is the substitution of capital for labor, as Karl Marx said. I don't usually quote Marx, but that's what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that the people with capital can use their capital to displace labor, but it makes us also much more efficient. It means you can do more with less. Mm-hmm. When you can do more with less, there are 2 fundamental effects. One is that society in aggregate becomes wealthier. There's a lot more money to go around.
More productivity.
Absolutely. And the history of rising standards of living in the United States over the past 2 centuries were largely a result of improvements in automation. And you can trace all the different waves of that very easily. And the same pattern follows every time. It's a movie that plays regularly, just with a new theme. In this case, that theme is generative artificial intelligence. The second thing it does is it changes the nature of work. Everybody's afraid that, oh my God, everybody's going to be out of a job, and you can always see projections. Consultants say, well, in 20 years, 50% of white-collar jobs will be gone. Well, the implication is there's going to be mass unemployment. But that's not really the way this works, usually. What happens is that the nature of the work changes. It's true that people lose their jobs in areas where they're no longer needed because those jobs can be automated. But it's also true that automation always changes the nature of the work so that there's new kinds of work for people, and usually better work, mm-hmm. Usually not a step down. Mm-hmm. the mix of jobs that will be available on the market and the skills that people will need in order to do those jobs, that's all going to change.
Okay.
Okay.
So, without this getting too nerdy, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the limitations of the underlying technology. You gave a lecture to our group yesterday where you said that these machines do not think.
Correct.
Some of the latest models claim that they are going to explain to you their thought process by which they've answered a prompt that you've given them, but you don't think that they're actually thinking in anything like the way a human being thinks.
There's a very fundamental difference between the way the current generation of this technology does its thing and apparently the way that we do. And you're hitting on exactly the right point. As crazy as it sounds, these systems don't reason, think in the sense of reason, think in the sense of perform logical operations based on sets of inviolable rules that are designed to accomplish some kind of result. They can't do that. And instead, while they appear to be doing that, it's simulated reasoning. Now, you might wonder, what's the difference between reasoning and simulated reasoning? Hey, Jerry, isn't that really the same thing? It's not. It's a very fundamentally different concept. And it only appears to be the same at certain points in time. Now, let me try to explain that concept. Perhaps should I go through the example I gave?
Please do. Yeah, that was a great example.
All right. Game of tic-tac-toe. Imagine that you were writing a program to play tic-tac-toe. The obvious children's game. I'll assume everybody in your audience knows what noughts and crosses if you're listening in England. It's tic-tac-toe here. Here's two different programs. The first of them is programmed with the rules of the game. You know, you go first, the opponent goes with the opposite piece, or whatever you want to call it, opposite mark. Your job is to get 3 in a row. If you need to block your opponent, or you need to try to create a situation where they can't block you, those are the basic rules of the game that every school child understands. Now, you can make a program that will play a virtually perfect game of tic-tac-toe using those rules.
It's just an algorithmic sequence where this
it
happens
applies
and
the
then
rules.
something else. Yeah.
Now, that is actually logical reasoning that's being performed. It's a sequence of steps based upon a set of fixed rules designed to accomplish some kind of result. The other program works like this. You can figure out exactly how many games there are in possible games in tic-tac-toe, because it's a small board, 3 by 3, and only 2 pieces. I don't recall, I can't do math on the fly while I'm talking. But you know, it's less than 9 factorial, I guess, or 2 times 9 factorial, because that's the maximum it could be. You know, it might be a few 100,000. I hope I'm not wildly off, but it's not a lot. And then you can remove symmetries, you know, in the game. And what you do is you simply make a list of all of those different states, all those possible board positions. And you say, if you're in this position, this is the move you're going to make. This is the right move to make. Now, if you were playing against these two machines, they would both appear probably identical, because they're both going to play pretty much perfect games. But now we do something very subtle. I come in and I say, hey, Frank, today, instead of playing 3 by 3 tic-tac-toe, we're going to play 4 by 4 tic-tac-toe. Now, the program that works through logic at least has a fighting chance of being able to apply and generalize those rules to be able to work with a 4 by 4 board. So the reasoning system is capable of generalizing. The other system, it's completely lost. As soon as you hand it a 4 by 4 board position, it can't look it up. And so it can't make any moves. Now, the current generation of generative artificial intelligence is in that latter category. It's simulating reasoning, but it's not actually reasoning. And what that means, the effect of that, is as long as you're within the bounds of the range of things that was in its training set, it's going to do great. And it can do things that are very sensible. It can appear to be engaging in logical reasoning, et cetera, et cetera. But as soon as you take a step off of that path, it's lost. It can't do it. Now, this effect is so extreme that I'm going to diss a particular product, the one that I'm using right I happen to be using primarily Google's Gemini. Now, if you take two 5-digit numbers and you give it to Google Gemini and you say, add up those numbers and multiply those numbers, or you do a couple of these examples, you would naturally assume that something that recently won the Math Olympiad would be capable of doing that by itself. But the truth is, it can't do it. You can try it. It's an astonishing experiment. It will make arithmetic errors, simple arithmetic errors. And the reason is, it doesn't understand the rules of arithmetic. It can spout them if you ask you to do so, but it cannot execute them. This is a fundamental difference between the way these so-called thinking machines think and, however we're doing it, the way that humans think. So now let me tie this back in, if I may, to a larger picture of what's going on right now. We're in the middle of another economic or technology bubble. I have lived through several of these. This is not my first. It's not your first, probably. But it is also...
Since we're the same age, I think we've lived through the same number.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I was, God knows, I was dead center of the dot-com bubble. I was right in the middle of that one. But this is not only, it's not my first bubble, it's not my first AI bubble. There was another one back in the 80s where too much investment came in based upon the promise of the technology. Now, when you have too much investment, you might think that's a good thing. More is going to get done. But that's not really the way that it works, because you can't distinguish between good deals and bad deals. And the deals just get bid up, and everybody gets money when the tide is floating all boats when the tide rises like that. The problem is, in order to get the ones that everybody in the game knows that to succeed, you got to get more money than everybody else so you can outlast them, and you got to grow faster than they did, and that's mostly a function of mind share. And so in order to get these tens of billions of dollars that all of these companies are investing currently in building data centers and staffing and products for artificial intelligence, they have to claim that their product is the best, that it's better than everybody else, that they're the most advanced, that these other guys are followers, not leaders. And they keep coming up, the people who are doing this, who some of them lack full integrity.
No, not possible.
Not possible. Most of them are fine, but you got to make a claim that's bigger than the next guy. And the flavor of the day a few months ago, or I guess 6 months ago or more now, was reasoning. Oh, our system, we're building reasoning systems. Well, we have, ours thinks deeper. Ours, can do more. But the truth is that's complete fiction. It's false, as I've just explained why that's not the case. I don't think anybody's going to assume that a system that can't do simple, plain schoolyard arithmetic, I don't care if it can quote Kierkegaard to you, the fact that it can't do that, you wouldn't say that it's a valid reasoning system. So we've got this bubble happening. There's too much investment, and inevitably the bubble will deflate and crash. There isn't room for the dozens of leading AI companies that are building these enormous models that require this enormous amount of computation to build. So I'm saying two seemingly contrary things, but the truth is they're both true and they both occur simultaneously. One is we're in a bubble, the whole thing's going to crash. That I'm confident about. The other is this is an extremely valuable technology, and it's going to find a lot of very practical and productive applications throughout society, up, down, left, and right.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you elaborate a little bit on the upside? So you took me for a ride in your fully self-driving car. I won't say the brand name.
Yeah, don't do that.
Well, that begins with a T and ends with a name. But in any event, this car...
I lost all my friends by...
Yeah, okay. But let's assume that, either that company or another company gets everybody into these robo-taxis where they're fully self-driving.
Right.
What's the vision of the kind of world and the kind of society that we are going to live in at that point?
Well, the point that I made yesterday at the class was to give a sense of, it's just one thing for me to sit here and go, wow, the future is going to be fabulous and this is going to have lots of application. But it's really a bunch of individual applications for different industries and different uses and different productivity improvements and all of that. And The one that I picked as an example was the automated driving.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one sentence of history, this started with the DARPA challenge, I think it was 2004, and right here at Stanford, they won one of these, I think the original one, the self-driving cars. And that's been about 20 years. It's been about 20 years of work, and it's based on AI,
Mm-hmm.
neural networks,
Mm-hmm.
doing object recognition and other things. And that is a relatively mature application. And what I can tell you right now with great confidence is the problem of getting a car to self-drive is solved. This works better
Mm-hmm.
than human drivers, and that's not just a marketing statement. The stats are in, you know, the receipts have been counted,
Mm-hmm.
and these cars are extremely safe relative to human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're also fun. They're a pleasure to watch and see how they drive. I believe the generative AI has actually moved that whole field forward much further and faster than I had expected. And the reason is probably worth mentioning, which is anybody who's used a generative AI system knows that they're capable of a kind of being socially adroit, of understanding the nuances of how people speak and what they mean, and how to communicate effectively. Driving is actually much more of a social activity than people might realize. It's not really rule-based. There are rules,
Mm-hmm.
but the way in which people actually drive, there's all kinds of conventions about, if you wave somebody on or you're waiting, if the person on the corner takes a step off, that means they're probably going to cross in front of you. It's a social activity, and making eye contact with other drivers, particularly at stops, is a very important part of that. Now, the car can't make eye contact, although they could fix that. And but the same generative AI technology that's making those computer programs that everybody's chatting with seem so socially appropriate or
Mm-hmm.
smooth is also being applied in this other domain. So the way in which the car that I'm currently testing behaves, it's really astonishing to see how it engages in kind of socially appropriate driving.
Mm-hmm.
It knows when to give the bike a little more room, or when to leave a little space so somebody can make a turn to get into a driveway, and things like that. So your car seems polite. Let me put it to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me get to your question. So this technology, it's tempting to think, well, it's just like having a car, but without a driver. Well, that's the mistake people made in the early 1900s when they said that an automobile, which was called a horseless carriage, was just like having a carriage with horse, but without the horse. Well, automobiles changed everything. The whole way in which we navigated the streets, the way streets used to be like public spaces, they banned people walking in the street and all that, and children don't play in the street unless they're my children. That happened, and it created the whole automotive revolution. Created the suburbs, created motor culture, changed travel, it changed entertainment. All kinds of things were changed as a result of the automobile. Not to mention the nature of our use of energy and manufacturing, and all the job infrastructure and all that. Self-driving cars are going to have a similarly large impact on the way in which we do transportation. Let me just cover a couple of these very briefly.
Okay.
The first one is there are 2.3 million injury accidents in the U.S. every year. 40,000 people are killed. The stats for Waze and for Tesla, because they publish their safety stats, very roughly are that these cars... Waymo. Excuse me.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Pardon the error of my ways. What I was saying is that the stats show that these are roughly, they get into accidents about 1/10 as often as humans do. But then if you dig in further, you find something else even more interesting, which is that the remaining 10% is mostly other people hitting them.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to report those as, contact events, they call them, injury accidents. They may be property damage, they may be personal injury, but it's other people hitting them. So, hey, I can do math. if you figure out if everybody had a self-driving car, it's probable that the reduction in accidents would be 99%, virtually eliminated. And the remaining 1% is just things like, an object falling from the sky onto your car, or, some act of God. Now, you could eliminate the 2.3 million injury accidents in the U.S., save 40,000 lives. And the total cost of traffic accidents in the U.S. alone is generally estimated to be about $2,000 per U.S. household. I know it's hard to believe it's that large, but it is. It's some hundreds of billions of dollars are spent on healthcare, lost productivity, damage, insurance.
I myself have spent several nights in the emergency room as a result of accidents. Although it's these damn kids on electric scooters and bikes, but yeah,
well,
I get your point.
Yeah, okay. So the point is, just from a public health standpoint, this is a public health imperative. Rather than trying to hold this back in some way, now that these stats are clear, we should be rolling this stuff out as quickly as possible, because it's going to save lives and it's going to save a lot of money. That's just one of the areas that's going to be effective. A second one is, there's no reason for you to own a car anymore, because you'll be able to call a robo-taxi, and when they're ubiquitous enough, which they will be, they can probably be there within 90 seconds, 2 minutes. You get in the car, it takes you where you want to go.
You don't have to park it.
You don't have to park. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to pay for gas. You don't have to do maintenance. None of that stuff. It's all eliminated. And I won't go through the math of the costs, but very roughly, it's going to cost about half as much per mile for the average person to be traveling in an automated taxi, if you will, rather than traveling in their own car. Obviously, just compare it to something like an Uber ride. How much is the car and how much is the driver? The answer is it's about 50-50. Well, you eliminate the driver, you can cut the cost in half, very roughly speaking. So that means parking is no longer an issue. 14% of the real estate in Los Angeles is occupied by parking. That's some hundreds of billions of dollars worth of real estate that you don't really need, because you can manage these systems as fleets that can be off in different locations, and they can even just be cruising around because they know exactly how much they need in different areas. So a lot of the parking can be eliminated. You won't need to buy a car yourself. The average car costs, the average U.S. family spends $12,000 a year approximately on their vehicle. It's the second largest expense. If you cut that down to $6,000, that's a $6,000 bonus for every household. And what are they going to do with that money? Spend it, and that's going to employ people. I already mentioned the $2,000 they're going to save on health care and insurance and all of that kind of thing. How about their house? The average U.S. house has a 600 square foot garage that's capable of holding 2 cars. That's enough space for 2 more bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The cost of housing can be brought down, can be consolidated. Traffic, we haven't even gotten to that. Because the utilization of the vehicles is going to be so much higher, what's going to happen is that you need fewer cars. And that means, you want me to fix that?
It's okay.
Sorry, I scared you.
Not you.
It's shocked.
Yeah.
It's shocked into the silence. That means that traffic jams are going to be virtually eliminated, potentially virtually eliminated by this technology. Not only because there are fewer cars that are necessary, but like if you're driving on the highway, they also have much faster reaction time and much better what's called situational awareness. So they can do what's called caravanning. So a car, your car will simply hook up to a car in front of it, and it can travel at very high speed, 75 miles an hour, 3 feet behind the other car and be perfectly safe because it can slow down. And we haven't even gotten to the fact that if we're going to have cars like this, they're probably going to be able to communicate with one another. So here's where I'm going, here's where I'm turning. There won't be any guessing, which is what's going on now. I have an autonomous car. It's got to guess what every human around it's going to do, what every car is going to do. If it was able to talk to the other cars, it would be another big jump up in safety.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure I'm leaving a few of these benefits off the list, but this is highly transformative for our whole way in which we engage in personal transportation. It's going to have an enormous economic impact. And to get to the point, that's only one application of this new technology. There'll be many others which will have equal or greater impact.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, that's actually a very pleasant vision in many ways. Obviously, there's a lot of disruption to get there, but
there will be disruption.
yeah.
People say, my God, it's going to change everything. Oh my God, I'm so worried. But as I pointed out to your students yesterday, most of them have already lived through a revolution of very large magnitude. What life was like before the internet and before the smartphone, it was very different. It changed everything. Whole professions were wiped out. The newspaper business was destroyed. All kinds of things happened. And somehow we're still standing, and we're at full employment. And that's the pattern which has always held. As long as the disruption is not so rapid that you can't retrain your workforce and the demand for new workers doesn't have time to grow, if it's too fast, it's a problem. But another thing we haven't gotten into, but I'll just state it as a bold hypothesis here, a bold statement, is that it's going to take probably 10 to 20 years for us even to make use of the existing technology. I'm talking about, excuse me, Frank, like GPT-3 level technology. We haven't even begun to figure out how to make productive use of that. And it generally is going to take 10 or 20 years for businesses to reorganize their processes, to understand how these things can be used, and to get the most benefit out of them.
Yeah. Well, as an educator, obviously we've got to, I think many professors, teachers think that this is a threat because it's going to relieve students of the need to read and think and so forth. But in fact, it is a tool, and I think part of the skill that they're going to have to acquire is how to use this tool and how to use it effectively, not be fooled by it, not be overconfident in the results that it produces, but to actually, use it as something that helps them accomplish their ends.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I lived through the introduction of the handheld calculator. People don't realize that there was a time before people had those calculators. And we know we're fossils old enough to have lived through that.
Yeah.
And they said the same thing.
Right.
Math teachers were crazy. Like, how are we going to prevent the students from using these? They're never going to learn to do arithmetic, and everybody's going to be stupid. Well, the truth is, you don't need to do arithmetic. It's helpful to have an idea of how it works. But I'll bet anything if I sat you down right now, locked you in a room with a pencil and paper, and said, do this long division problem, you probably couldn't figure. I couldn't remember how to do it.
Yeah.
But the point is, you never do arithmetic anymore. The only arithmetic I used to do was calculating tips, and now that's automated. You can just pick off how much you want the tip to be.
Right.
So really, this technology is going to go through the same thing. What we need to do is to train students how to use this technology effectively in order to help them to understand the subject matter better and to do better critical thinking. That can be done. It's not impossible. It's going to take a little bit of careful thinking and work on the part of the educators, but absolutely that is going to happen.
Yeah, okay. Jerry, that's great. It's a terrifically balanced view of what's bullshit and what's actually something to look forward to. So thanks very much for talking to me.
Thanks, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here.